Hello and welcome to Remote Monitoring Solutions. My name is Sharon Shaw, and I'll be walking you through a variety of different remote video monitoring solutions today. The reason why we're hosting this particular presentation is because we've received a high number of questions about the difference between video verification and remote guarding, or what can we actually do with this type of surveillance system installed on this site, and how does remote video monitoring allow end users to reap additional benefits and to have a more safe and secure environment. So those are the things that we want to address today. My name is Sharon Shaw. I'm the president of a company called Integrator Support, and what we do is provide a wholesale solution where we have the dealer program that systems integrators like yourselves need to get trained, to start promoting these services, as you start selling services, that ongoing support, and really just to guide you through the process of implementing a offering such as remote video monitoring. So that is what I do, and so I'd encourage you, if you have any questions during this presentation, to please type those in as we go, and where I have breaks or where I, at the end of the presentation, I'll field those questions for you. Similarly, if you have any offline type questions or projects that you're working on, just reply to any of your webinar emails that you've received with your login information, and I will receive all those replies, and I'll be able to follow up with you individually. So again, thank you for your time today. I know how valuable it is, and the fact that you're spending a little bit of it with me is very much appreciated. So let's go ahead and get started. We utilize a monitoring and data center outside of Boston, Massachusetts. It's G4S Monitoring and Data Center. G4S is one of the largest private employers on the planet. They are the largest security company, and they are the, I think they're the #1 company on the London Stock Exchange. So they're a large entity. They're not going away. As you can see from this list of bullet points, they're obviously a 24/7 operation. They're UL certified. They are also CSA A5 Diamond certified. So in order to achieve those credentials, that puts them in a bracket of, I believe, less than 3% of central stations in the U.S. In addition to that, you can see there's a bullet about highly trained technical staff. Now, what does that mean? Each of the operators that monitor these surveillance systems has a minimum of an associate's degree in either IT or computer science. So what value does that bring? The fact that you guys can work with them on troubleshooting, bringing systems online, configuring video analytics, and things of that nature, they're going to be there to support you and make sure that you and your customers' needs are met, and that you're both satisfied and that the expectations are managed. Additionally, because G4S also owns a guard company, they've leveraged that understanding, that knowledge base, and they've trained their operators not only on the technology, not only on protocol, how to handle police and things like that through the CSAA program, but also on guarding practices. So if they're working in conjunction with a security person on site, they know all the lingo, they know what their needs are, they know the typical security practices performed by a guard. So they can better embody those traits as a remote guard facilitator, as well as how to best work with and align their services with an on-site security presence. So that's just a few things on the monitoring center. They also have a disaster recovery site that's located approximately 30 miles away from their main facility. These are some pictures of the main facility itself, just to give you a feel for what it looks like. If you are ever in the area, in the Boston area, I would strongly encourage you to go by and visit. Get to know the people, get to know the facility itself. It's completely hardened and, like I said, fully redundant. So it's really, they haven't cut any corners in terms of developing a facility that's suited to handle the large amounts of bandwidth required to monitor video, to make sure that everything can be performed adequately by their agents, and so forth and so on. So now let's really dive into more of what are remote video monitoring solutions, and how are these solutions applicable today. Well, this list of bullet points you see are kind of the feature sets that we have at our disposal through remote video monitoring. You know, I'm seeing commercials today where people see remote video monitoring as just the ability to view video from anywhere. And yes, I mean, that's kind of a good definition of it. In this case, we're really talking about professional video monitoring, not just the ability to pull video, but that you're having a professional handle this for you. So end users who, you know, might not have the wherewithal to effectively handle their alarm system, or if they, you know, want to supplement their existing security personnel with professionals outside, maybe just during less busy hours, maybe during just evenings or weekends, things like that. That's really where we see most of the schedules taking place and most of the monitoring taking place. But these are the feature sets that we're going to dive into today, and I'll show you some demonstrations of each of them. And the first that I'm going to talk about is actionable video, or event-based video monitoring. So what is that? That's basically, there's an event that takes place. There's some sort of an incident that's occurring at the facility, and the monitoring center is notified that they need to go monitor and look for something, that there's something that needs their attention. And so that can be triggered by a variety of different signals, and we'll talk about trigger devices here in just a moment. Now, a video tour is something where we can patrol the facility through video. So we pull the video feed from each camera for a certain period of time, and we look for a specific type of threat. And so it could be stuff where perhaps there's a specific activity going on that the customer wants to eliminate. For example, we monitor an outdoor mall, and some of the issues they've had include vandalism and people that are skateboarding on the property. It wouldn't seem like skateboarders could really harm much, would it? But the fact is that if somebody gets hurt on that facility and they break an arm or they break a neck or whatever, the owner of that property can be held liable. So in a lot of cases, it's liability issues that they're trying to reduce, and how can we mitigate some of that risk? So tours are a way of looking for a specific type of behavior and trying to intervene in real time and keep it from continuing. A video chaperone is just like it sounds. It's the process of chaperoning or escorting somebody from point A to point B through a video tour. We also have video audits, which are tours that are done that would be conducted on an as-needed basis. And we'll talk about some examples of when that might be applicable. Virtual doorman is a unique feature. That's something where if you have a high-rise customer with maybe it's a property management company and they have multiple tenants occupying one building, and they are currently handling, you know, all the access control system for that customer, but somebody gets locked out. Somebody forgot their access card inside the building and they need to get back inside. Is that something that, you know, the facility manager should have to handle? What if it's after hours? You know, how do you handle those kinds of situations? We can, through this service, remotely control a door or a gate after authenticating that individual and making sure that they have, you know, the ability to access the facility. So we'll talk about that and how that works. And of course, incorporating your conventional alarm monitoring, so your intrusion, fire, and environmental alarms. Two-way audio is another feature that really enhances the security system or this program. Two-way audio allows us to do voice-down announcements, where if something's occurring, we can do a voice-down announcement and tell the person, you're in a restricted area, you need to leave. If you don't leave, we're dispatching authorities. Or we can dispatch authorities and then do the voice-down announcement and just tell them police have been dispatched. Or it could be, you know, no skateboarding is allowed, you know, please leave the premises. Those are the types of things that we can do with voice down. So we're able to intervene in real time and be specific enough with the individual that's causing that type of an exception, alarm exception, and we can stop whatever it is that they're doing in most cases. Now, additionally, the voice can come from the facility. So it can be push-to-talk. It's technically like a half-duplex audio solution where you can do a push-to-talk intercom interface and say, I need some assistance, or a panic button, or there's a variety of other things that we can use where we can listen in on the site. But we do that through a push-to-talk audio option, so we're not just listening in without any kind of prompt from the facility itself. So that's just a few of the things. Now, hosted access control is another element of this service where we can monitor access control alarms. We can, like I mentioned, open doors and gates. We can also manage an access control system for your customer. So adds, deletes, changes, reporting, those kind of things that they're having to do on their own today. Those are the types of functions that you can leverage the experts at G4S to provide that service to your customer. All of these things, are technical. But the number one challenge that I want you guys to embrace today is put your customer hat on. Think of, how does this translate into a solution for my customers? Think about, what does this actually mean to their business? How can I take these features and functionalities and bring them into a customer scenario, a proposal, and show them how their life can be easier, they can be more efficient, they can save money, they can improve their overall safety and security of their facility by leveraging these types of services. That's really where the rubber meets the road. Recurring monthly revenue is great for all of us, but the key is customer satisfaction. And there's got to be a demand at the customer level, and there's got to be a value proposition that makes all of this worthwhile. So let's dive in, starting with, at the top, we had actionable video. In any of these services, the number one issue is response. That is the most important thing. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about the different types of actionable video that you might have. There's really, I see, 3 different levels of video monitoring today, professional video monitoring, I should say. The first is video verification. That's sort of your introductory level to this type of service. What is video verification? It's taking an alarm signal that traditionally would be sent maybe to a central station. It's, for example, a door contact, okay? A door forced open, something like that. Someone didn't disarm the alarm, and so all of a sudden there's an alarm condition going off. And it is the monitoring center's responsibility to field that alarm and respond accordingly. Now, in most cases, or the traditional way of handling that alarm would be what? To contact the property owner or the business owner, whoever it might be occupying that facility. And next to that, it might be contacting the police. Now, the problem that people are facing today is that if they don't, filter out that alarm, if there has been a bird or some other reason for a false alarm to be generated, police get dispatched and they arrive at the scene and there's nothing going on. There are lots of different ordinances now that are causing people to be fined for that action. So having so many false alarms, you can start getting billed by the county or your city or township or wherever your geography is. They will fine you for having false alarm dispatches. So video verification solves that. That's the first problem it solves, is instead of waking the customer up in the middle of the night for no good reason, instead of dispatching police for no good reason, they take a video clip of when the alarm was originally initiated, and they verify that what we're supposed to be looking for is there. So in most cases, it's people. It's people or perhaps vehicles that they're monitoring for, okay? So that's that's your basic video verification. There's an alarm. They verify that the alarm is indeed a true concern. And once they've verified, they disconnect the video and they dispatch authorities or they notify whoever's on the notification list. So it's a pretty basic process. They're just filtering. Now when you get to the next level, interactive video monitoring, what is that? What's the difference between video verification and interactive video monitoring? A lot of it is similar in that we get an alarm, we look at video, and we dispatch or we do whatever the protocol is. The key difference is the ongoing monitoring for that event. It's an end-to-end incident monitoring solution. So in the case where we're providing an interactive video monitoring solution to your customer, what we would be doing is we would get the alarm signal. We would not only look at the alarm video to see what happened that initiated that alarm condition, but we would also continue to monitor that video in real time until the entire event has come to a close. So the value in that is we stay connected to the cameras. We stay on the phone with the dispatcher until it's been resolved, until people have been apprehended, until the guards have arrived on the scene. We will continue to monitor and communicate valuable data back to whoever it is that's responsible for the response. So in addition to that, interactive video monitoring incorporates like the voice down announcement service, where we conduct a voice down announcement to stop the activity that's occurring currently. So that's sort of your second level. The third level, which incorporates all of the feature sets that I've talked about thus far, is remote guarding. Okay? So what's the difference between interactive video monitoring and remote guarding? What do I get in a remote guarding solution that I wouldn't get with interactive monitoring? Well, when you think about monitoring, you think about there's something that happens. You know, it's event-driven, okay? And you monitor that site for those types of events. But in the case of guarding, think about what a physical guard does. What does a human guard do when they're on the site? They do tours. They walk around the facility. They have a presence that's known to the people that are there on the property. They will handle the ingress or the entrance points for that facility, making sure that people are allowed to enter through that gate or doorway. Those are the types of functions that a guard handles. Now, of course, there's also that element, again, of response, where if something is happening there, they can be there quickly because they're already on site. Okay, so that's what a physical guard does. So how do we conduct guard-like services in a remote or virtual capacity? How can we measure up to that? Well, think about this from a selling point. The average guard, one guard, 24/7, 365. So that's 3 shifts per day, 365 days per year, would typically cost about $175,000 annually to your end user. That's a national average. Okay, so depending on your market, you know, it might be different. If you're in Mobile, Alabama, or you're in New York City, you're going to have a difference there. Okay, but generally speaking, that is a national average, and if you ever quoted that to your customer, you would be safe in saying that that's the typical cost for one guard to be on the site at all times. So with that type of expense, there are a lot of companies out there today that can't afford it. Maybe they'd love to have a guard, but they can't afford to have a guard. Maybe they currently have a guard, and they've walked in at 6 in the morning and saw them sleeping at their post, or something happened and someone hit them over the head and they were unable to handle the situation. There's all kinds of points of failure that you can receive with a human being handling this on site. Now, we're all human. The people monitoring virtually are also human. However, doing it in a virtual environment gives us a little bit more flexibility. So the first thing we talked about was tours, and that a physical guard will roam the facility and do a tour. They'll do their rounds. So how can we do that virtually? Instead of waiting for an alarm condition to come in, what we'll do is initiate a tour. And that tour schedule will be something that's predefined between you and your customer. It's on the scope of work. And so that, again, that frequency, that expectation is managed from the very beginning. Okay? So we conduct a tour. Additionally, I mentioned handling doors and entry points, things like that. That's another function that we can do remotely through integrations to access control systems or through relay controls. There's a few flexible ways we can do that. So I just want you to get a feel for, in general, what are the kind of the different levels of these offerings and which markets would they fit in? Depending on where you're located, depending on your areas of expertise and the types of customers you typically serve, you might want to package, only one or two of these services. And, that's what you lead with, that's what you provide, and you're just going to go to market with a very clear offering. And this is exactly what value prop we bring to you. But so in summary, all of these services, what they do, we verify alarms, so there's no more false dispatches, false wake-up calls. We monitor those incidents from end to end to make sure that it's handled effectively, and that if there's any information that could be transmitted to the people responsible for the response, they have as much information as possible so they can be more effective when they arrive. And lastly, we can be more proactive in looking for sort of those subjective type concerns, like the skateboarding and the things that no technology can tell us, oh, there's skateboarders over here in this zone. No, it can't do that. It can detect people perhaps, but it can't detect skateboarding. So tours are a way of looking for some of those specific things that are of concern to your customer. So let's dive into some of the key talking points you'd want to bring up to your customers. It's proactive instead of forensic. So if you look at the way we're positioning video surveillance today, it's mostly forensic. It's all about frame rate resolution, quality of the video, how many megapixels, how do you access it, what is it integrated into in terms of, maybe an access control system, things like that. But it's, in every case, it's doing primarily one thing, which is recording. So if something happens, if there's an incident, they can go back and try to identify who's responsible for it. But what we're doing now is using video in real time in an effective manner to be able to deter some of that activity. In terms of bandwidth requirements, that second bullet you see on the screen, that is referring to if you were comparing a remote video monitoring or an event-based monitoring type scenario with a scenario where you have a command center or some room where they're constantly streaming video to a matrix of monitors for someone to view. That can hog up a lot of the network. So instead of having to stream all of those cameras all of the time, you only send them to the monitoring center when there's that alarm condition. And there's studies that show that, we mentioned some of the guard practices and how sometimes they can be ineffective, especially in that scenario I just described. Being in a room with a matrix of monitors, studies show that within 15 minutes, they lose up to 80%, if not more, of the data they're supposed to be looking for. They miss 80% of the activity that they're supposed to be looking for with all those monitors. It's just human nature. You tune things out. You get bored. You look away. You sneeze. It doesn't matter. It's impossible for a human to be able to effectively monitor all of those systems just by staring at them for a lengthy period of time. So what can we do that's different? How does this handle that? Because everything is based on actionable video, everything is based on events, it means that the operator receives some sort of initiation for that video to be monitored. And it pulls them in, they know what they're looking for, and it prompts them to handle the protocol accordingly. And the last one is that the actionable video facilitates remote monitoring. Well, what does that mean? The fact that it needs to be actionable is what makes remote video monitoring, or professional video monitoring, I should say, a true solution. It's got to be something where, you know, you see something and it's worth acting on. Okay, that's what makes our job worthwhile. So how can actionable video be generated? There are a variety of tools we can use to get alarm events. We have a whole matrix of compatibility that includes most of your major brands of either VMS or DVR type equipment. Similarly, we have direct integrations to most standard IP cameras out there. We also can use your standard intrusion panel or an access control alarm system. And like I mentioned before, voice over IP, having that push-to-talk scenario where someone needs assistance and they can use that. So let's look at an example, okay? I'm going to open up an example of one of the sites that we monitor today. The nature of this end user's business is they take organs from the hospital where an organ donor recently passed, and they transport those organs to the hospital where they would be, you know, inserted into a patient that needs that organ. Okay, so it's a rather sensitive business. You know, people get desperate. Their loved ones are dying. They can't get on the donor list in time. It's messy. You know, people are willing to spend a lot of money to get access to something like that to save someone's life. So it puts these delivery drivers in a particularly, you know, risky situation. So what this customer has done is they moved into this facility. They installed those gates there to keep any pedestrians, you know, from wandering in. That's why they have the sliding gate. But the challenge with that sliding gate is that it moves slowly. So you can see that the truck just utilized a valid access control credential that opened the gate. And now this black Beamer behind him is sneaking through before the gate closes. So how did we get this event? We monitor that camera for any motion during certain hours of the day. So we manage all of the entrance management. We manage all the ingress and monitor that process. So that way, anytime anybody's coming in, we are looking for a scenario such as this. Similarly, in a different exit, actually, a different gate that they have at that facility, we have some video analytic cameras that are monitoring the exit. And we don't necessarily need to know every time a staff person leaves. That's not our concern. But if somebody tries to enter through the exit, that is an exception, and that's something that we want to monitor for. So that's why we're monitoring. That's how this event occurred. And you can see on the left-hand side what we call our audit trail. This audit trail provides a timestamp detailing of everything that happened in the course of that event being monitored. So what time did the alarm signal come through to the monitoring center? How long did it take for the operator to acknowledge that alarm and begin monitoring? What did they see with every click of when they select a camera view to look at? What did they see? And if they transmitted any audio, what did they say? So your customer will receive this event report every time an incident has occurred. And it has all the video clips, all of the audio. And then they can go, you know, pass this on to whoever needs it for, you know, handling the police report and all of that. So it kind of streamlines, really, that process of getting that information into the hands of the people they need it to. Now, similarly, that audit trail is something that they can go through just to make sure that the monitoring center did what they were supposed to do, as was outlined in the contract and the scope of work. So that just gives you an example where if we were not monitoring that site, that entrance point, how else would you have known that an unauthorized person was on the site? How long would it take before that incident developed into something of of a magnitude where it caused people to get concerned. And at that point, what do you do to try to find out how they got there, why they're there, what they're trying to do, or what damage might have been caused? Getting all of that evidence in is so difficult, to find the data that you need. And so this allows people to know in real time that this event is happening right now and what can we do to intervene. Now, fortunately in this case, that the black car happened to be a subcontractor who was there to do some work on the facility, and the person with the truck that opened the gate in the first place was the facility manager. So this was sort of his plan, just follow me in, and then I'll walk you around the building and you can do whatever it is that you're supposed to do, Mr. Contractor. Well, it seems harmless, right? But with the nature of their business and the level of security that the owners of the company are looking for, it is critical that they stick to a security policy. So what we did is we took this event, we got it up the food chain, and basically the leaders at that organization said, hey guys, if you're going to have a visitor, this is our visitor management policy, and this is how you get them the right credentials so we can track their whereabouts without letting them just shadow and tailgate you everywhere you go. So that's just one example of a site that we monitor and how we're using event video to handle that scenario. Video analytics I've spoken about for a brief moment or two, and I'm not going to dive into necessarily even product types or what have you, but I just want you to get a feel for why it's necessary. There are cases like the one I just showed where video motion detection is sufficient. You don't have environmental factors such as rain or lightning or even wildlife that could cause a tremendous amount of false positives. And perhaps you want to ignore certain behaviors in certain areas of the field of view of the camera, but you're really concerned about just a section. What video analytics allows you to do is establish a set of rules, and when those rules have been broken, it sends an alarm. So those rules are listed in the bullet points at the bottom. Tripwire, for example. What is that? It's a line. It's pretty easy. It's a line. If someone crosses it, it sends an alarm. Direction of travel can be tied into a tripwire. So the example I mentioned where we monitor the exit point for that same parking garage I showed you a moment ago. If people exit, that's fine. We don't watch that. But if anybody tries to cross that line coming into the parking garage, that would trigger an alarm. Region of interest. Well, what's different between a line and a region? A region of interest is an area, and so you can, really draw whatever kind of a shape it is. It can even be a donut if it needs to be a donut. But you can say, I need to have, this type of area monitored for either people or vehicles or anything and everything with a higher sensitivity level depending on the nature of that application. And if this happens, it's an alarm. If a person is within this region of interest, it's an alarm. If a vehicle is within this region of interest, it's an alarm. So it's not necessarily just a line. It's an entire area. It's a perimeter that's breached. Loitering. How do we monitor for loitering? Basically, you take that region that I just described and you establish a timer. So if it's supposed to be a thoroughfare, perhaps you have a customer that is dealing with vandalism issues. Okay, they have, one side of their building is back to an alleyway, and they keep getting tagged with graffiti, and it's costing them all kinds of money to fix it. They just come back a week later and do it again. It's an eyesore. It makes people that are in that facility feel like they're in an area that might be less than safe and secure, and it just makes it harder maybe to attract tenants. If I'm a property management company, I mean, graffiti is a big issue, or any vandalism, for that matter, is an issue. And so loitering might be the type of rule you would establish to combat that type of activity. So you could say, people are allowed to walk through this alleyway, but if someone stands here for more than 30 seconds, I want to do a voice-down announcement letting them know that no loitering is allowed. And then that makes them leave. And if they don't leave, then we dispatch authorities or a security person on site or whoever it might be. The last bullet, crowd detection. What is that? Crowd detection is, it's not meant to be like people counting in the terms of like business intelligence. I don't know if you guys have heard of that, but there were a few companies that came out and said, hey, use video surveillance for retail and count how many customers you have in the store and track and see if the sales signs, get them interested in this product or that product. It's not that, okay? That's not what we're not trying to blow this out of proportion. This is a security application. And the crowd detection is intended to find a group where it might be a fight that's getting ready to break out, or it might be a drug deal that's going down, or it might be some other incident. Maybe someone got injured and people start crowding around, watching to see what's going to happen and they need some assistance. Those are incidents where a crowd would be a security or life safety issue. And so what you might do is have a region of interest, and you could, establish what is the number of people I consider a crowd. And when so many people are there for a certain period of time, I want an alarm. Okay? So that's the nature of analytics and how we use them. Now, I mentioned that after the actionable video because that's one of the newer trigger mechanisms. I told you it can be any kind of dry contact. It can be any kind of, other type standard alarm signal. And we can then activate the video feed, to pull that video and see what's really going on. But there are cases where, if you want to do outdoor video monitoring, for example, you have a storage yard that's housing building materials or valuable machinery or other types of assets that are just sort of there for the taking. Video analytics might be your best bet at detecting that type of behavior, someone breaching your perimeter, whereas, beams, they can false alarm quite a bit, which drives up your monitoring costs, and they're pretty expensive as well. So why not just tie it all into the camera and have that surveillance system be the trigger mechanism? And that's why we're talking about that. Tours, I know I elaborated quite a bit on this, so I think I covered all of these bullets. I'll just show you this example so you can get a feel for what a virtual tour looks like. This is actually a tour of the monitoring center itself, so you'll recognize it from those pictures I showed previously. But you can see we can drive PTZ controllers. The way these tours are conducted is when the time frame comes about where we're doing, say, hourly tours. So the hour's gone by, it's time to do another tour. The agent is prompted to begin the tour. And in order to complete the tour and to keep them monitoring at an effective and highly aware mode, is to have the operator hold down that mouse button through the entire duration of that tour. Well, why would they do that? Well, instead of saying, oh, okay, time for a tour, I'll say, yes, activate the tour. Oops, I sneezed. Oops, I walked away, or I fell out of my chair, or whatever it could be that might distract me from really looking at that video and trying to identify the types of incidents that the customer is looking for us to look for. And because they have to be pressing down that mouse button the entire time, if they lift up their finger, it says the tour has been canceled. So that goes onto the audit trail. That is something that will be very transparent to the end user. So it's critical that the operators are completely entrenched in that particular event when it's occurring, or that tour when it's occurring. I should have mentioned earlier, and I didn't, some people assume that professional video monitoring incorporates like continuous streaming off-site, where instead of having a command control center, you just send it somewhere else. No, that's not what we do. And I mentioned earlier that we truly believe in actionable video, event-based video. So I just want to make sure that you are all aware that tours will be done, frequently enough where the type of behavior that they're looking for us to detect, we would do it frequently enough to try to identify that, but not so frequently that we're looking at the same cameras all day long, because then we lose our effectiveness. Now, the reason I paused the video on this particular frame is because you can see that there's a door propped open. There's no reader on that door, so there's no access control system saying, hey, door propped open, door propped open. But I happen to catch it. There's daylight coming through the loading dock. So why is that? Why is it that anyone can just walk right in right now? That shouldn't be allowed. So this might be a case where I would take my finger off the mouse button and activate either a phone call or a voice down announcement to get the attention of the employees on site. Hey, can someone please close the door to the loading dock? Okay, so that's an example. Now, if I did that, if I stopped my tour to go dive into why that door was propped open, in the initial tour event package, like you're looking at here, at the bottom, instead of tour completed, it would say tour incomplete. And then there's a section where the operator has to type in, why was this tour not completed? And then they would say, noticed, or identified door propped open, see incident number X. And then what will happen is, as soon as they started diving in to that door being propped open, that initiated a separate little event package. So there's a separate audit trail and the video clips and the audio and all of that that's associated with how that incident was occurred once it was actually determined there was an incident occurring. So those things all tie in together. I just want you guys to have a feel for what your customer can expect in terms of documentation and reporting. Okay, so video chaperone was the next thing on the list. And the number one question I get on chaperone is, okay, Sharon, your monitoring center is in Boston. Well, I'm in Dallas. So if I leave my office building at 11 o'clock at night because I'm working on a deadline and I'm tired or whatever, and I request a chaperone, and you're watching me and someone mugs me as I'm walking to my car, what good is it going to do me to have you in Boston? How does that help me? How does that protect me? And I like to look at it from sort of a devil's advocate standpoint. I'm going to show you this example while I talk about it. So you can see that it's late at night, it's dark, there's no one around, it's snowy, it's cold. If somebody jumps this person or mugs this person, it could cause, obviously injury, and if they can't move, they'd be in a situation to maybe get frostbite and have an issue like that. If they were abducted, that would be obviously a situation that we would need to get police involved in immediately. So there's two things to consider here. The first is we can do a quick tour outside the exit before that person is going to go from, I'm leaving through door number 2, and I'm going to park, or my car is parked in, this side of the lot. We can look through the cameras and see, is there anyone crowding around door number 2? Is there any activity going on around door number 2? And in between door number 2 and where that vehicle is parked. So we can do a quick tour before they even open that door to make sure that there's nothing that's going to come out and get them. Okay? After that, once they start moving from point A to point B, we can do a voice down announcement so that anyone within earshot distance can hear. We are conducting, this is the monitoring center, the security center. We are conducting a video tour or a video chaperone, and just so that everyone is aware that their activity is being monitored. So if there happens to be someone around, they're going to know that they're on camera, and not only are they on camera, but they're being monitored in real time. Say, for example, something happened. Say she got abducted or mugged. And what would the alternative be if we weren't doing a chaperone? What would happen? Well, she's 30 minutes late, an hour late getting home, and all of a sudden family starts to get concerned. They start calling her cell phone. They start calling people that she works with, if anyone's around, to help answer when she left or some of those questions that they might have in their minds. Then, they realize that no one's heard from her. They don't know what's going on. They can't find her. Maybe they go to the facility and her car is there, but she's not. And so they call police, and they're frantic. They don't know what to do. What are the police going to do? How long does it take before police will file a missing persons report? And without any kind of information, What are they looking for? What time did she try to leave? There's all these unknowns that make it hard for the police to do anything to help. Whereas if we saw the incident occur, not only can we try to intervene through a voice down announcement telling the person you're being monitored, police are dispatched, and try to just stop the incident in its tracks. But if the incident finished, if they took her, if they left her there beaten, whatever it might be, we can get police involved immediately because there was an eyewitness to what happened. We have video footage. Depending on the quality of the video, perhaps wherever they're storing it on site might have good enough video to see a license plate or at least a description of the vehicle that was there. That kind of information will get the authorities engaged and get them working. Whereas when you have no information or you have to wait until her coworkers come in the next morning to ask them to look at the video, you're in this predicament of just being worried and there's nothing you can do. So video chaperones, I argue, are a very effective feature out of the ones that we have to offer and can really help. This is one of those things where there's kind of a clear path to truly saving lives, okay? So, and basically the integrations and everything that we use, the equipment we use and all of that would be just as the same as if it was, we were set up to do tours, those kinds of things. So it's, all of your major brands, we can look at that video and we can handle all of that. Now, a video audit is like a video tour, but it's just done on an as-needed basis. So the places where we've seen them, you can see some of the markets we list there, but the places that we've done video audits for have been primarily really for like an operational purpose or a business purpose, not necessarily a security purpose. So this particular application that I'm showing you right now is a vacant building, and the property manager called the monitoring center and said, hey, I'm heading over to, whatever it is, 123 Maple Street. And I wanted to make sure I had all of this trash in that entryway. And I wanted to make sure that somebody removed it. Can you just take a quick look at the camera and see if that trash is still piled up? Because if it is, I'll schedule the showing for tomorrow instead of today. And so they looked at the camera. They said, yeah, no, it looks like the trash has been cleaned up. There is still some debris on the floor, so bring a broom. But other than that, it looks showable. And so it saves that property manager time from either going to the facility and looking at it firsthand or the risk of showing up and having an unpresentable property. Okay? So that's an example of how we can use video in just sort of an as-needed basis to help your customer. Now, something I didn't mention about kind of a video audit, if you want to call it that, is we do a daily camera check as well with all of our cameras that are online. So all of our event packages incorporate a daily camera check. So if you have 8 cameras on this system, every day we're going to look at your cameras to make sure they're online, that the quality of video is there, that there's no lighting issues, there's no spider webs, there's nothing that would hinder our ability to use that video if an incident were to occur. So, I mean, that alone could be a service you provide your customer. That alone, just a daily camera check to make sure that the cameras are in good condition and that the field of view hasn't been blocked by a tree that's grown over the years or some other thing that might be happening. So I forgot to mention that earlier, but that's another thing we incorporate in all of our monitoring packages. So the last feature that I'm going to demonstrate for you today is the virtual doorman, and I mentioned this earlier. But again, this is just the process of authenticating somebody and permitting them access through either a gate or a doorway. We have the ability to store a database of JPEG images, and we can assign each JPEG image to like as a contact in our system. So if you know you have 20 staff members that are allowed to access this building, maybe it's a data center, and you have 20 IT people that should be permitted access, and somebody forgot their card one day, or maybe during the daytime they usually have a guard authenticate people, but at night there's so little traffic they'd rather do it remotely. Somebody can go up to a door, they can push that push-to-talk audio and say, hi, I'm here to, fix this server, or whatever it is. This is my name. And we can verify from the camera as long as that camera is installed at eye level. This camera that you're seeing right now, it should be positioned lower so we have more of a facial comparison. But the idea is to verify through the image that they look like, you know, the person that's in the database, and not only that, but verify through a passcode or a security question of some sort. So we can authenticate people. So if they forgot their access card, if perhaps they're there to do a maintenance call or something, and we've received, you know, this is the security code for the guy coming in to fix the air conditioner. And they've given that code to them, and we permit them, you know, the servers are starting to get hot, we need that AC service right now. That's something where, you know, you might use a virtual doorman type solution. So that is, in essence, the feature sets that I wanted to really cover today. The last thing you're seeing is just conventional alarm monitoring, which is, you know, pretty standard. I'm not expecting to have to explain all of that, but we can supervise openings and closings. We can obviously monitor intrusion systems and handle the typical process incorporated with that. So what are your next steps? You know, you'd want to identify the targets. Now, the key here is to really look at, again, where is the demand creation coming from? What markets do you serve? Are you going after existing clients or new clients? If you're going after existing clients, what types of video and access systems have you installed for them? Are you looking at integrations where we have some capability to do event-based monitoring, or should we, you know, focus more on the tours type model? And the key for you guys is to come up with a package solution where I think one of the biggest advantages that you would have as an integrator support dealer is we have a package proposal program. We have a whole dealer program that consists of marketing materials, additional training in addition to what you've just seen today. We provide, you know, a step-by-step process for generating leads, and then in addition to generating leads, how do you field those leads? How do you farm those sales? And what is the process for conducting a site survey? What do you need to look for? If you've done your site walk and this is the type of solution they're looking for, what equipment should you install and how do you quote it? It's all so much simpler when you have a package. So the key to developing the right package is about looking at the customers you're going to go after and understanding their needs. So you can have your package in your back pocket. There's certain things like who do you want us to notify, what schedule do you want to set. I mean, there's certain things that will be custom to each customer. However, the general makeup of that system should be something that can be repeated over and over again. So it's less of a burden on your design team because you're using the same type of system. You're just tweaking the line drawings depending on the layout of the facility. And you know it works because you use the same integrations over and over again. If you're going after legacy systems where there's already stuff in place, it's having that compatibility matrix and knowing what are my capabilities with what you've already got, and here's what we can do with what you have, and here's what we recommend as your best solution by adding perhaps the voice down, you know, the speakers or the, you know, analytics on certain areas of the property. So I can help you guys with that. Our dealer program consists of a 90-day implementation process where we start with training, and then after training, we get into the email blasts and the lead generation process. And then we do weekly sales calls. So that way your entire sales team is accountable and they're engaged in the managed services sales effort. And then every 2 weeks, I work with the owners of your company just to make sure there's nothing holding you back. Is it compensation, that you haven't ironed out an incentive program? Could it be that you know, there's you know, the project manager who handles most of the projects there, you know, doesn't buy into it? I mean, there's different issues that might come up as you try to implement this both internally and externally. And so we do a bi-weekly call with the strategy leaders of your company to make sure that we're getting the buy-in and that you can move forward. And in addition to that, just that ongoing sales support. support, making sure that if you're working on a project, you want assistance with a quote, we can assist you with a quote. If you're working on a sales call, you want someone to help you present, we can help you present. There's all kinds of things that we can do for you. So I don't typically close with a sales pitch, but I want you all to know there are a few of you here that aren't currently integrator support dealers, and I want you to see the value of what we can provide. We're here to partner with you. The resources I just mentioned, from the training to the marketing campaigns and all of that, we give that to you. We're not going to charge you up front for a program that may or may not work. I don't make money until you make money, and because of that, we'll be successful together, and my interests are your interests. So that's the nature of working with us at Integrator Support. We have, all of the programs that you need, and we're learning too. Each day there's a new scenario that comes up or a new integration that we need to get put in, and there's different things that come up. So I'm not saying that it's all going to be smooth as glass, okay? But we've encountered the bumps. We know what to anticipate, and we know how to get over those bumps. So let us help you, and you'll get further along in your program than you would on your own. And last but not least, I just want to thank you all once again for your time today. I know it's valuable, and I believe I scheduled this webinar session for an hour, and we're just approaching that. So now I'd like to open it up. If any of you have questions, now would be an excellent time to ask any questions. You can just type those in your question and answer field. Okay, good question. Where can I get pricing? Okay, we have a price book. We offer, this is one of the services we offer, the professional video monitoring. We also offer a host of other services, including hosted video, hosted access control, and managed access control. And we've taken all of these services and created a single price book. So instead of having 5 different price lists for 5 different offerings and having to quote everything from, number of doors or number of cameras or number of events and confusing the heck out of everybody, we have a single price book. So if you're looking at offering these services, I will send you the price book, and you can start looking at how we price things. And basically, I want you to know that from these services, as far as these services are concerned, the MSRP really hasn't been established for the higher end of the system, the interactive video monitoring, the remote guarding stuff. It's so new to the market that there's really no expectation of cost. So that's good and bad. Why is it good? Well, it's good because it allows us to be flexible, because you're not competing against a standard, ADT model where that ADT is going to come in at X, and you better be, no more than 2 points above, or else you're going to lose the bid, something like that. No, these services allow us a little bit of flexibility, because the way you calculate their return on investment is by comparing it to having an on-site guard. It's by comparing it to how many losses they've encountered or how much money they had to pay out because they got sued from that skateboarder getting hurt. Those are the kinds of costs that you'll use to justify the investment in this system, this program. And the challenge, though, of there not being an established MSRP and an expectation at the end user level is that you need to educate them. It's up to you to define what that bar is. And so we can guide you through that process, but the reason I'm bringing all this up when you ask just a simple question of where do I get pricing is because we do not want to lose a job over price, okay? We will work with you. If you're working on a specific project, we can be creative and flexible. We have a standard price book that's easy to use, and you can depend on that. But if you're working on a unique opportunity or a large-scale opportunity and you need some assistance, let me know, and let us work with you on those opportunities. Okay, the next question is, what surveillance software can you work with? Really, there's no software in particular that you need to install on the site. In a lot of cases, we connect directly to the edge device. We connect directly to the camera. Or in some cases, we'll connect to the DVR. So we have a compatibility matrix that's basically a 5-page long spreadsheet that shows different products and their level of integration by feature set. So I'll send that over to you if you'd like, and basically you can see, which of the brands you carry are already on that list, and we can start there in figuring out where your low-hanging fruit might be based on our compatibility. Okay, and this will be our last question because I know we're just approaching the hour. Last question is, how do I sign up to become an integrator support dealer? If you visit our website, integratorsupport.com, you'll see under the title Web Forms, either on the right-hand side or you can go to Web Forms on the top, there is a section that says Become a Dealer. Fill that out. That gives me all of your contact information so we can move forward. After I receive your contact information, that request, I'll forward you our video monitoring dealer agreement. We have a one-time dealer agreement that is for 12 months. And basically that covers all of the T's and C's, regarding liability and your responsibilities and our responsibilities and things like that. And then every project you bring on, you submit just a simple purchase order. And that price book I mentioned earlier actually generates a purchase order for you automatically. So it helps streamline even that process a bit. So, each project, might have either a 12-month, 24-month, 36-month contract tied to it, but the dealer agreement, the umbrella agreement, is renewed every 12 months. Also, once you become a dealer, that's when we'll start that 90-day implementation program, and we'll get set up for the sales calls, the marketing campaigns, and all of that. So that is the last question I can take today. For those of you who typed in some additional questions, I'm sorry I didn't get to all of them, but I have your contact information and I'll follow up with you individually. And I'd encourage any of you that have questions you didn't have a chance to ask, just to contact me. Reply to any of your webinar emails that you received with your login information, and I'll receive those replies, and I'll be able to work with you directly to address any projects you might be working on or any additional questions that you might have. So once again, thank you very much. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we appreciate your time and look forward to doing business with you. Bye-bye.